Hi there, everybody. My name is Flavio Azevedo. I'm an assistant professor in interdisciplinary social sciences in the Netherlands, and I'm here representing FORRT. FORRT is the framework for open and reproducible research training, and it's essentially a grassroots organization that came literally from master's and PhD students a few years back, and now is 1,500 users strong. It is made out of a lot of psychologists, but folks from ecology, plant science, life sciences, medicine, mathematics, engineering, computer science, and so on. We get about 300 visits a day because we provide a lot of resources to folks. That's one of the things that we like the most, creating educational, metascientific, or social justice resource, communities resources. And we have partnerships with a lot of in the open science world, including Big Team Science. We got a few awards, but let's not talk about that. FORRT's major goals are four at the moment. It advocates for the incremental adoption of open science into higher education, and we do this by providing lots of educational resources for folks to use directly into their teaching, no matter what they are teaching, no matter what discipline they are from. We also want to educate folks about scientific uncertainty or epistemic uncertainty, epistemic pluralism, and epistemic humility as a way to bring trust toward science, as well as break the glass ceiling of the idea that scientists are super smart and so far away from a bachelor student or a master student. And in some cases they are, but in some cases they are not, and we never find out due to this very glass ceiling, very high, far away glass ceiling. We also want to reframe open science, which we call open scholarship, as inclusive scholarship. That is to say, we believe that open science is for all. And it's not only about making our resources and the objects of our research open, but also about including folks, co-designing, learning, etc. And also doing non-extractivist open science. So a big problem in big team science, we can talk about that later in the questions, is that big team science has been historically very extractivist and colonialist. So we can talk about that later. And the fourth goal is to advocate for the recognition of educational resources and academic pipelines, research assessment, etc., because it really, really, really isn't. And you have amazing educators that go their entire careers without being recognized for the awesome work that they do and the dissemination of the principles that we very much defend. So this is FORRT, and philosophically, or if you will, where we came from, more or less, is the idea that the Center for Open Science, Brian Nozick, and the founders of the movement, they essentially had 3 points. Hey, we need open scientific communication, we need to restructure our system of incentives, and we need crowdsource science, so big team science. The reason why we're here. So this very conference is one of the things that they wrote about a decade ago, and we are here. So this is good. And we felt in 2018, when we founded FORRT, that this is fine and dandy, and we absolutely need these 3 pillars, but open science must have a 4th pillar that is related to education. And that's where FORRT comes in, and that's the gap that FORRT tries to fill in. So I'll talk to you a little bit, but very speedy, all the resources that FORRT has. And I hope the slides are changing. So if it isn't, feel free to stop me at any time. And if you don't understand anything, or if you have a follow-up question, I'm not looking at the chat, so please speak such that I can answer your question. So FORRT has, for a variety of reasons, has the world's largest database of curated resources in open science. We partner up with many organizations that cease to exist, unfortunately, due to the lack of support of open science organizations, especially grassroots. And we ended up with the world's largest resource. Check it out. We have about 2,000 open science resources that you can check out. And as long as you type a full word into the Googly box, the search box, it will give you as many resources as we have. So that's pretty cool. And it's also editable, and you can also add your own resources like OSF slides or a paper or a research output, an EU project, NSF project, and so on. Together with the community, we also realize that when we speak about open science, sometimes we mean different things with the same words. So, for example, external validity can mean widely different things if you ask a political psychologist. I'm sorry, a political scientist versus a social psychologist. So that's super interesting. But also think about the words replicability and reproducibility, right? So the Institute for Replications, they actually don't do replications, they do reproductions, and reproductions are different than replications. They are amazing, by the way. It's just that in political science, the words were flipped, and for one reason or another, we are moving towards replications being whenever you collect new data, and reproductions is whenever you use the same data. All right, cool. So we thought that we needed to have a sort of a consensus glossary of open scholarship terms. So in 2022, we got together and we created about 250 terms, and we decided on their terminology. And most of them are still current today, but we are updating. It's one of the 4 projects that we are doing, and I'll say a few words about that in a second. But this is what the webpage looks like. Has this very short definition, a reference or two, who created it, because FORRT is very keen on giving credit towards your work as well as related terms. We are now on phase 2, meaning that some of the 4 projects, they don't die after their completion. What happens is that we either want to improve or extend. So for example, in this case, we are extending it to the Global South. So we are translating it, the existing glossary in 12 different languages. And now, of course, we have German, because if you give a task to Germans, the task gets done. You have Arabic, and soon we'll have Bulgarian and Swahili and Hindi. So very soon we'll have 5 languages. And we are also expanding the terms. We are reviewing the existing terms because some terms became a little bit unupdated, but we're talking about 5, just so you know. All the rest is good. The main bad terms are open data, if I'm not corrected, if I'm corrected, and something on licenses. Don't use those, but the rest are still very accurate. We wrote a paper about replications, in which we tell a different story about the credibility revolution, different story, maybe a complementary story in which we think, or actually it wasn't our goal at all, but we try to do a review of the consequences of the replication crisis or the credibility revolution. And it turns out that the best story, so to speak, is just how psychologists were able to revolutionize the way that they did science, and they changed the way they do their research. That's called procedural changes, and we mapped all of these. They had structural changes, so the organizations around scientific credibility, research integrity, rigorous science, and etc. And community change, like grassroots organization, big team science, adversarial collaborations. And you're like, oh, but some of these ideas existed before. Yeah, but no other science has uptaken these initiatives. In any case, moving forward, just because I'm keenly aware of the 20 minutes mark, we also produced a systematic literature review on the consequences of teaching open science to your students. That is to say, you're like, hey, to your to your boss or whoever, but imagine you had a department and you're like, hey, we need to include more open science into our curriculum, and maybe he or she will say why, and this is the article that you need to read to answer why. Is that so? It increases student scientific literacy. Their willingness to engage with science, better attitudes towards science, and they have better learning outcomes. And so we review all of that there. Um, Also, especially when it comes to organizations, open science organizations, so think about bottom-up kind of or grassroots organizations, we feel that, there's one every day, which is amazing, which is a good thing, but there's no systematic map of this organization. So if you are, say, somewhere in, I don't know, Manchester in London, or if you are somewhere in Alabama, or if you are in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, or wherever you are, how do you know somebody is practicing open science or is interested in the topic? So what we did is that we mapped this systematically, and soon enough, there will be a shiny app that you can just say where you are, and it will tell you how many people are around you, what are their names, the organization, so you can contact them. But we published this paper in the Royal Society for Open Science, and we mapped 187 open science organizations, and it's a pretty cool paper for you to take a look at. We also have who isn't doing AI nowadays? So essentially, based on our curated resources, we created a bot that you can visit, and it's pretty good. Please visit just minus os.org. It is a really cool bot. It will give you much more accurate information than ChatGPT. We tested it, and more importantly, it doesn't hallucinate. Similar to notebook LLMs, it only uses the resources from FORRT, which has been curated and vetted. Not from FORRT, by the way, that we vetted it. So people that we even disagree with, but it's on open science topics. So please check it out. And this is the process that hopefully in 2 to 3 months we will look like. So you will visit the FORRT website. This little jelly bean will come and say, "Hey, can I help you?" And that will be on the FORRT website. But it exists because it's used a lot. We decided to have its own website as well. It's pretty cool. All right, cool. We also have many courses on open science. In this case, it's open research that you can take online, whether you are an instructor or a learner. We also have the NASA's Transform to Open Science book, which is an amazing course, but it's just to say that if you don't know, these courses were removed from the NASA and the US because it is essentially a very DI and social justice oriented course, and therefore it was deemed to be unfit by this new administration. So if you still feel, which you should, that open science is inseparable from just world, please check it out. I already talked about replications and reversals in my last talk, so I'm going to skip, but essentially, here's a collection of replications. Please go to our website. This is what it looks like. So FORRT.org reversals, and essentially it's a list of replications that give you, once you click on the little statistics box, it will give you the status of the replication, everything we know about a given replication, including meta-analysis, including critics, including opinion pieces. All right. We also have a handbook of reproductions and replication studies, of which we're really, really proud, and we're going to publish as an actual book very soon. But it's a general statement about how to conduct replications. Um, so if you're interested, you can download the PDF or look at the book online. It's a quarter book. All right. We also have a book on the replications in social psychology specifically. And Rima Marie Rahal asked herself, what if, together with students, we rewrote um, um, most social psychology books based on the replications that have been made. So what if we talk about intergroup contact? We talked about um, 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 intergroup conflict and etc. So a lot of things that have replicated and not replicated, but essentially it's a very novel project. And you can contribute. I think Rima is still receiving folks to review. The chapters have been written, so yeah. Um, FORRT also has the world's largest database of replications in the world that you can do all sorts of meta-analysis with if you're interested in correlates of what correlates of successful or failed replications, etc. By all means, check it out. This is one of the graphs that you can look at effect size shrinkage, for example. And we also have a whole hub with all sorts of things that you can take a look on replication. So not just that. And recently we partner up with the Center for Open Science to make our database of replications far more useful, especially to meta scientists, such that we are able to be really, really, really sure of the data that we collected. And because statisticians coded them. And there's so much heterogeneity even between statisticians. So we are also working on a paper on this. So if you feel like, hey, this is something I'd like to do, or this is something very, very nice to look at heterogeneity of folks who are being paid and have been trained and are trained in statistics. How come that's effects are so heterogeneous? Let us know. We really need a lead for that project. We also have the Fred Lighthouse, which is a project that we are trying to get into completion, which is essentially a way to look at evidence in a rigorous way. So we tap into several different sources to, if you're interested on a given effect, we tell you, hey, has this been retracted? If not, does the code work? Or has has it undergone an Institute for Replication, reproduction, etc. So this is an overview of our replication hub, and ooh, and it counts with just 1 second. I'm not 1 second. Sorry, I'm alone in my home, and there's something going on here. I This is the Replication Hub. This is the Road to Replication, which is the journal devoted only to replications. And this is the topics on which, not only the topics, but also the kind of replication research we do. And this is the way that we go about it. And it's going to be launched in the 10th of October. And I'll be right back again. Thank you so much. Sorry, a little mess. So this is the journal, and I will end here. And if you have any questions, let me know. Um, yeah, I think this is it. We managed. Sorry for all the, yeah, all right. If you guys have questions, let me know. Maybe we stop recording and then the questions come. I feel that that worked last time. Brittany.